This is the lock tutorial for Northstar's locking system. The first thing you need to know is how to add a lock to a cabinet. You will click on a cabinet and you will find the parameter that says lock me, and it will be false when you see it, and you simply flip it to true. You can see here that the locks will appear. The other way to add a lock to an object is to edit the part, and you click on the face, so the door part itself, and then you click lock me there, and you will get a lock on an individual section for the cabinet instead of the entire cabinet at once. Now, the requirements for a lock to be active is that each face section needs to have an associated interior section. If it's drawers, you need to have drawer stretchers or fixed shelves between each drawer. If it is doors, like over here, you need to have a fixed shelf in between each split of doors. You can have other interior sections as well. You can have fixed shelves behind a single door. So let us do this. You can have fixed shelves, but where there is a split in the face, you need to have that section set before you do any other internal sectioning. If you do not do this, this is what it will look like. So here is a drawer bank. There are no drawer stretchers inside of it. If we enter the section editor and section the interior, you can see the drawers, but no stretchers. So let's activate the UCS on that by hitting lock me, and you'll see that the locks behave in a strange fashion. To fix this, we go to the section interior, add a horizontal split at each face split, and when we pop back out of the cabinet, you will see that the locks snap into the correct positions. So the locks need a surface to attach to. If it is the side cabinet lock, you need to have a side or an adjacent face for it to lock to. If it is a pair of doors, you need to have that door there for the pair of door lock to put an additional strike plate in. And if it's a drawer, you need to have a stretcher or a cabinet top for it to lock to. Now, there are door locks, drawer locks, and pair of door locks, but there is also another type called a gang lock. So to activate a gang lock, you need to have no interior sections. So you would need to remove the interior sections for whatever drawer bank you are doing. Then you would return out of it, and you still need to have lock me activated, but you'll select this parameter, lock use gang lock, switch that to true. Now there are a number of changes that will be made to the cabinet. Let's compare our regular cabinet versus our gang lock cabinet. Our regular cabinet, you can see we have stretchers, and we have drawer stretchers on the inside. You can see them there. You can see the drawer stretcher there, and you can see the locks active, and you can see all the operations. Now, with a gang lock cabinet, the UCS will change the cabinet top to a full top, and it will dimension in these parts of gray, and will put a single lock hole in the top right of the topmost drawer. That is the lock cylinder location for your gang lock. It will also add, if we look at the side view, we'll also add these pre-drills for the catches on each drawer, it will add these dados and these additional and these dados. If you have a gang lock drawer that is narrower than 27 inches, so we take this to 20 inches, for example, it will remove the hardware from one side of the cabinet, but the rest of the changes will be maintained. If you change from a locked cabinet to a gang locked cabinet, you cannot switch it back easily. So if we remove gang locks from this cabinet, you will see that even if we resection the interior, the top is still held back and a number of construction modifications have occurred. So if you need to go from a gang lock to a regular lock cabinet, you need to delete this cabinet and replace it with a new cabinet, like so. You cannot do gang locks on a cabinet with a door. It does not work. Or I should say, it will put all of the changes in, but it will not limit itself to just the drawer area. It only, and you will get the dados down the sides in the door section as well, so it does not work as you need it to. When we are locking a drawer, we need a couple of things. The UCS ensures a few things. The spacing at the top of the drawer is a static value that's set and standard throughout all of Northstar's system. We put the lock in place, and when you look at the lock itself, let's see if we can actually see the operations here. It's not going to let us. Okay, I'll have to show you that in the material editor. The master dado for the lock catch is a set distance off of the model. So you need to keep this distance consistent for a drawer. If you change that, if you change the top clearance of your drawer to, let's say, 0.1, the lock will remain in the same position because it requires a specific distance from the next adjacent surface to the lock body, which is about half an inch, or it is half an inch, in order for it to function appropriately. Now, when you lock a file drawer, so let's come here and change the construction of just this drawer to a file drawer. Let's go Accuride file drawer, So we now have an Accuride file drawer. The front of our drawer will stick above the height of the rest of the drawer box in order to support the lock. It will have our standard clearances. It will follow the clearances that we see here. So I can change this to 0.1 if I wanted to, and you would see the front move up. But the standard will always have the top of the drawer flush to the top of the lock, or the top of the drawer subfront flush to the top of the lock. You will always see that the file bar on the right will be clear of the lock. So let's change this to 12.5 inches tall. So we move the lock down. So as you can see, the file bar and the lock do not interfere with each other. It is the same way in the lateral file configuration. There is enough clearance between the lock and the file bar, and that's a set distance, that it will not interfere. Other controls to know, for a drawer at least, is that you have the ability lock offset from default. This is a default position. A negative value will move the lock to the right, and a positive value will move the lock to the left. The default value will always have it clear of the file bars, regardless of the width or the placement. So let's change the width of this cabinet to 16.625, 16 and 5/8. So we'll see just a letter configuration. You'll see that the file bar is still clear of the lock. Now for doors, the lock needs a pull to reference from. Here is a cabinet without any pulls, and you'll see that when we activate the lock UCS, the drawers snap in just fine because they're not referencing off of a pull, but the doors put the hardware at incorrect locations. So if we add pulls to it, you'll see that everything snaps into place. With the elbow catch up at the top if it's a pair of doors, and this a set distance off of the hardware. Now, the hardware is supposed to be set up, and it doesn't always work because sometimes Cabinet Vision bugs out, to where it will read how big the actual Chrome object is and and pull a distance off of that Chrome object. Not every pull in the system is set up this way, so it doesn't always work. For that, when you run into errors like that, you have, just like with the drawers, lock offset from default, moving you towards and away from the pull, depending on what you need. Now, the single lock, as I've explained before, dados into the side. Let's take a look at just that. Let's section the interior, delete the interior parts, and let's look exclusively at that. So you'll see there is a strike plate with a master dado associated with it. And then you will have the holes for pre-drilling into the door, and then the lock body operation as well. And if we change this back to fill mode, it looks, relatively simple from the face. The pair of doors, let's remove the back from this cabinet so we can see what's going on the inside. And then section interior, let's remove a couple of these fixed shelves. So on the pair of doors, you can see that there is a strike plate on the opposite door. You can see let's switch this over to wire mode real quick. You can see the pre-drills on the back of the primary door and the lock body operation. And it's that way, the lock will always be on the right-hand door, and you will see the elbow catch as well. The elbow catch will always be on an associated surface, fixed shelf, drawer, stretcher, whatever it needs to be. That is where the elbow catch will be. Now, to manually place a lock, because as good as this UCS is, it isn't always perfect. To manually place a lock, so for example, if we need a single lock in a cabinet that cannot have interior sections for whatever reason, you will have to add a new part. You'll have to change the part group to pull, and you'll have to pick the appropriate lock. You have lock drawer, lock pair door, and lock single door. In this case, we want lock drawer. And then you would place it wherever you need to place it. Again, it would have to be a ½ inch down from the top of the cabinet and would have to be touching the back of the drawer box subfront. But you can call it out just as though you would any other part.